Part of the beauty of being a podcast host is the completely different backgrounds of the people that I get to interview on podcast. Today is one of those ones that really sticks out in my head because Steven's background going from software engineer to Hollywood executive and producing some household name movies and then back to software engineering is a really interesting journey, and he has some amazing leadership insights. If you ever wanted to hear from somebody who was responsible for special effects on movies like Independence Day and Transformers and a bunch of other movies that you've seen and love, including the Die Hard franchise, this is the guy you want to hear. I hope you enjoy this podcast episode as much as I did sitting down and interviewing Stephen Puri. Thank you. Okay, first question. What kind of microphone are you using?
It's a Yeti Blue.
Oh, okay.
How does it sound?
Oh, it sounds good.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I'm
always curious about that.
A friend of mine recommended it, old co-founder of mine. He was like, this is the microphone I use. And he always sounded great. So I was like, you know what? Trust your friends. Trust people you know.
Yeah, that's why I use this little tiny thing.
Oh, nice. What is it?
It's a, let's see if I can get my finger.
Like a little lavalier mic?
Yeah. It's magnetic. And it
doesn't destroy your shirt.
It doesn't destroy the shirt. I don't have to punch holes in anything. The battery life is amazing. And so far I've been happy with the sound quality and
your sound quality is fantastic.
Oh, thank you. They make a version for the computer, but there's also one you can plug it into your telephone. So if you're recording on your phone, you get much better quality audio.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I actually just was frustrated with the quality of my MacBook Air camera. And I have friends who have like the nice little setup with the additional like DSLR, but all that stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
I just got the new MacBook Air M4, whatever. And I'm pretty happy with the quality. Like the resolution's
better camera.
Yeah, I just think it's fine now. I don't need to get additional cameras. It's fine.
I'm super curious. You run in the air. Does it have enough horsepower and all that stuff?
Okay, Bill, let us be honest with each other. What I use it for is basically some coding, running, local builds of Sukha, stuff like that, returning a lot of emails, and doing the occasional podcast. So it's great. It's got like 32 gigs of RAM. It has the M4 or whatever it is, 4 billion terahertz or something.
Right. Yeah.
For you, it might be underpowered, but for me, it's fine.
Well, you're compiling code though, right?
Yeah.
And it does that fine?
It does. My old MacBook, probably the biggest reason I got rid of it was not the, it was here. It was one of these, the old rose gold ones.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest reasons I got rid of it was not actually the camera, which was annoying, but not like a reason upgrade. But it only had 8 gigabytes. And, with Macs, you can't upgrade the RAM.
Right. Not that, the new gen, they solder them in or.
I know.
Into the board,
And I guess I'm old enough to remember when it was like, let's go buy another, gig of RAM, another 4 gig chip.
Yeah.
Not so fast, Mr. Puri.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, that's because of my past with running software engineers and them always wanting to compile faster.
Right.
And I for a very short amount of time was running in air. And back then it didn't have nearly as much memory.
Yeah.
And my big complaint was, it takes forever
to
compile stuff.
Yep.
Forever's, it's all relative, right?
Yes. But when you're an engineer, you're expecting your steel to just like devour code.
Right. I'm like, wait, it takes like more than 30 seconds. What in the world is wrong with this?
Right. This is unacceptable. Yeah. I need more power. So like, what was that Tim Allen show? More power. Home improvement, more power.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
I have that fence. Remember the neighbor would talk to him over the fence?
Oh yeah.
I have our house here in Austin has exactly that fence on 3 sides. And I was talking to one of my neighbors and his wife, and his neighbor was doing that thing, right? And his wife was doing that thing. And I was kind of laughing myself at like, oh my God, this is exactly like Tool Time or whatever. I can't remember what the guy's name was. And Mike caught it. He goes, honey, you're doing the home improvement neighbor thing. And she didn't know the show. So she's like, what are you talking about? He's like, the neighbor, isn't it? She's like, what are you talking about? And Mike and I were both like,
exactly. Okay. So she needs to go binge watch it, or at least the first 3 episodes.
Exactly. She needs to watch that. And the other thing is Office Space. Do you ever watch the movie Office Space? No.
I don't think so. I don't think
Oh
I've ever
boy.
seen it.
Okay.
There's
So
all these
listen,
memes, and yeah.
if we become long-term friends, it's like table stakes. You're going to have to watch Office Space
Okay. Okay.
because there are so many jokes. If you lived through the 90s or 2000s in an office, if you remember like what a fax machine was,
Oh yeah.
it nails it. It is that culture. And there's so many jokes in there that are just, it's a lingua franca.
Okay. Should I delay the podcast?
Oh, okay, let's wait 2 hours.
Yeah,
Hit me in
yeah,
2 hours.
yeah.
We're going to do this thing. I'm going to do all the, I'm going to, okay. And you, by the way, when the new version of Sukha comes out in a couple weeks, you will see in there little jokes like sometimes your next task will be review your TPS reports, which is an office space joke. And I'm just like, you know
Nice.
what? Maybe 10% of the audience gets it.
Right,
But
right.
the ones that get it are gonna fucking love it.
Oh yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, it's the really heavy adoption users.
Yeah.
That's the genius.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, let's be honest. Most of my platform, the biggest cohort of members in Zuka, they're engineers, they're developers, and
Right.
most of them have seen Office Space. So it's like playing right to the
Oh
cheap
yeah.
seats.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. You know your audience well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm just
Critically
saying.
important piece.
Yeah. So when you watch, I'll tell you, I was this is my ex-girlfriend before Laura, my wife. We were watching it, and it was the first time I saw it, right? And I remember I had a TV in my bedroom to sort of like you'd sort of sit in bed or sit on the edge of the bed, kind of, or sit propped up against the bed to watch, right?
Mhm.
So in the opening scene, there's a guy listening to rap, and I'm not going to ruin it for you. There's a guy listening to like a full-on like 90s gangster rap, like, well, the fucking nigga shoot you cap to the ass, and every little thing. And I fell off the bed laughing so hard. It was like so funny to me. And Sarah, my girlfriend, was like, okay, it's sort of funny, I guess. I'm like, you don't know. Like some of my friends are that guy. Like that exact thing. And I kept rewinding it to like watch that scene again. She's like, I'm gonna go get some ice cream or something. I'll be back. Like you enjoy. Right. So anyway, I hope you enjoy. I hope I haven't built it up too much. That is my gift to you. If you enjoy it though, you got to email and be like, dude, I watched it. You were right.
I'll go watch it, and we'll see what happens.
We'll see. And if you hate it, you hate it. Either way.
Yeah. I'll give you my critiques. It'll be we'll post on Rotten Tomatoes.
You know what I often say with movies I've worked on, or obviously Sukha I work on, it's like it is great to get negative feedback because you learn more.
Right.
Yeah. When your friends are just like, oh dude, it's so cool to you learn nothing. You're like, thanks.
Right.
I know that you like me and you care about me, but it's way more helpful to be like, dude, there's too much friction, right? Well, you talk about friction a lot. There's too much friction here. Like, how could you reduce it? I don't have the solve, but I can tell you this is where the friction is. Fix that.
Right.
That's like gold. You're like, thank you, dude. Anyway, I'll be quiet. I'm super pumped up. I'm so excited to talk to you today. I'll be quiet now.
Well, no, you're the guest. I mean, come on. The whole point is to get you to talk.
We'll tell you some story. Maybe have some helpful principles, some fun stories.
Awesome. Okay.
Who knows?
Wait a minute. Did you write a syllabus for this?
Like a syllabus,
like an
reading list?
Did you write an outline? Did you write an outline for this podcast?
Well, no, I'll tell you this. What I have found is by listening to some of your episodes, and generally with podcasts that I do, it's much harder with speaking engagements because you don't have the same history of like, oh, I know what this engineering school loves to talk about, But with podcasts, you can very frequently go back. Like I was listening to your happiness one with Dr. Joey, right?
Oh yeah.
I was listening to one where you talked about friction kind of alone. You're like, so you get a much better sense of like, oh, here are kind of the things that are organic to this. And I try not to have like a rigid list of like, I must say these 7 things, as opposed to I get a sense of like what you like to talk about with your audience. And then we kind of keep it in the river, but let the river kind of flow around,
It's like whitewater rafting.
There it is, which is super fun. I know.
Yeah. You got to get as long as you don't get hung up in the tree.
Right, okay. Exactly. Or in the hole, right?
You don't get stuck in a hole. Yeah, don't get
stuck in a hole. I've done that on the Kern River. I remember that. That was probably 15 years ago. I still remember. I was like, oh, we're.
Yeah. Oops.
Oh, yeah. Well. So you learn.
Yeah. So the question that I always ask guests, and yeah, I'm going to ask you the same question, is like, how did you? So you're not 19 years old.
No.
And for anybody who's listening to this,
I mean, I look pretty good for 50.
He looks pretty
60,
good, but he's
right?
not 19, right? I'll just tell you, he's over 21. So, it's an adult audience. And what's really funny, if you're not on the videos, it looks like he's drinking an adult beverage right now. and it's only 9 a.m. So I'm like, wow, that's pretty early to be getting after it. But okay.
Hey, Bill, it's going to be a long podcast. Yeah. You didn't think they still made Schlitz? They do in Texas.
Oh, okay, great. You're supposed to be drinking a microbrew in Texas, aren't you? Isn't that the?
I know, dude. If I were cooler, I would be. I'm not that cool. I'm drinking a Rambler.
I don't even know what that is.
It is a sparkling water that I think is grapefruit, naturally flavored grapefruit. I'm an exciting guy. Just deal with it.
Okay, hey, I'm just following in your wake and getting pulled by your draft. And
dude, I get it. And someday this could be you. I mean, dream big.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. I'm actually going to go to the store and see if I can even find that.
It's pretty good. Laura buys them by like the 48 pack.
Okay, cool.
She's
taking care of you.
She's taking care of us. And you know what? Wish I owned stock. As a matter of fact, this is maybe the week to go buy stock at Rambler.
It would be. Exactly. Yeah. It will never be cheaper. No. Yeah. You got to go invest right now.
I'm sorry. I interrupted. I derailed you. I'm in a great mood this morning, so I'm sorry that I'm digressing. You were saying I'm going to ask you.
Yeah. I know it's all good. I don't have a like fixed agenda on this other than one question. And the question I always start with is, what's the origin story that kind of got you started in your path, and then like got you to start leading projects?
Yep. And then got you to great answer for you.
Cool.
Great answer for you. And I have one question for you before we start.
Sure.
And I don't think I asked this of you when we were chatting before. Of the podcast, the episodes you've done, what is the common element that makes you the most proud, or feel like these are the most engaging? What's the thing you go, God, in those 4, we all got down to this, or the guests all did this? Or what's the thing that makes you go, those were the best ones?
That is a really good question.
Because I want to deliver that. I want us to create that today. Yeah. But you've listened to way more than I have. I listened to 2.5 episodes. I have not listened to all of them.
I think the thing that I and this is like a high level desire. I fully get it.
Yep.
But it's when the guest says something, and for me, this is totally selfish, by the way, it's an aha moment, and I'm like, that's a fascinating insight.
Okay.
Because like they put 2 and 2 together and they got 7.25.
Yep.
And I never looked at it that way before.
Yep.
Clearly there's different lenses in their glasses than what I've got on.
Oh, that was good. That was good the way you did that. I see you making moves. Okay, that is fantastic. And let me offer you this thought, which is I found that in the introduction, the 2 things that seem to hook people into, I'm going to stay with this episode, are he's raised $21 million of venture. Because people are usually like, shit, he must be doing something right in tech to be raising all that money. And 2, it's that he's been a senior executive at a couple film studios. Because they're like, who else is, I want to hear what this crazy dude has done. Right. Those 2 things seem to be the thing where like the listeners don't drop off.
Cool. Okay. Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
We'll put that in the show notes.
However you want to do it. The things that I've learned doing podcasts and speaking engagements, people are intrigued by those 2 things. They're like, he raised how much money? And oh shit, I've always thought about movies. Who makes movies? Yeah, it's true. Know your audience, man. You know.
Yeah, definitely. That's very cool. Okay, so back to, what's the origin story?
Do you want to record it?
We're recording right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't tell me when. Could you give me some formal start? Like, I'm here with Steven.
And go. So usually what I do is I'm not super formal at the start of doing podcasts. And so we just start talking, and that's why I hit the record button early, because I want to make sure I get everything.
Yep.
And then I'll record an intro.
Okay, fantastic. So I guess I was just rambling with random shit. Like, I'm ready to start when you say
go.
Start, let's go.
Go. Okay, go. Here, this is it.
Okay. So origin story. I will tell you right up front, my life is the story of lucky, crazy left turns and disasters. Right?
Okay.
So this is not one where it's like, I was born 4 years old writing poetry. I'm now a poet laureate for Finland or something. Like, this is not that story, right? I dropped out of college to write more poetry. I'm not that guy, right? I will tell you this. The couple of the key turns that got me here, and I'm very grateful for where I am, very lucky in this life. One, both parents were IBM engineers. Mom was a software engineer back when there were not a lot of female software engineers at IBM. Let's be honest. It's like IBM System 360 days.
Right, right. She must be
Dad
the
was,
only one.
excuse me?
She must have been the only one.
Pretty much. Pretty
Yeah.
much. It's kind of like how my dad met her is they had a mutual friend. And my dad's like, who is this woman working in, the same facility upstate New York? Like, what? And my dad's friend told him, because he was trying to set them up. He's a pretty shy dude. He told him at a certain point, he's like, why haven't you like gone to lunch with or something? My dad's, I don't know. He goes, she makes more money than you do. And my dad was like, who is this woman? And like, 50 years ago,
Right, right.
what kind of engineer is she? And she was a good software engineer. And dad, designed logic chips, CPUs for IBM, right? He's an electrical engineer. And he has 74 patents to his name. Like worked hard, kept his nose down, like smart dude. So I am set on a course where in my DNA, my parents are both engineers, right? So what did I do when I was like in high school? Yeah, mom taught me a code, starting with simple stuff. Hey, man, I got you a basic cartridge for your Atari. Try to do this. And it's like, well, this doesn't do much. Okay, let me teach you some other languages. It's why I know some ancient languages like hieroglyphics. Yes, I've written Fortran and COBOL, JCL, SAS. Like, like crazy. I remember punch cards, right? So that was when I was like in my teen years, because mom would sometimes take me either to work or take me to, she's getting her master's in engineering at the time. So I'd go down to the university with her and, she'd let me run short jobs. She's like, here, I'll package that in with my job. We'll go run that on the mainframe. So that was super cool. So left turn, when I'm a junior, I get an offer from USC, University of Southern California in LA, right? And they said, hey, you know what? We know you've done some stuff with journalism, blah, blah, school paper, blah, blah, blah. We thought you did a great job. Do you want to come here a year early and start college? And I went out to LA. It was amazing. They were so nice to me, blah, blah. And IBM was very nice to me. They gave me a Watson scholarship. So they kicked in money, USC kicked in money. And part of the Watson scholarship is you get a job if you want one. I'm not sure if they do that anymore. But when I was there, it was like, if you were a Watson scholar, they're like, hey, you're smart enough that if you want to work here. So during college, I worked as a junior software engineer, making some money for college, right?
Oh, nice.
Lucky happenstance drops in my lap. USC probably arguably has the best cinema TV school in the world, right? Like there are some other fantastic schools, UCLA, NYU, there's some fantastic, I don't mean to say it's the best in the entire thing, but arguably the best. So a lot of my friends in my dorm, and then, sophomore year and third year in my apartment, they're, young writer, director, filmmaker, aspiring, sort of thing, right? So I'm friends with them. We have fun, creative conversations. At the same time, I'm doing my work and I'm hacking on the side, just writing stupid stuff for IBM and making money. I was in LA when film became digital. So it wasn't just 35, 70 millimeter film, suddenly it was like, oh, Kodak lets us digitize this and we can make film in the computer and then record it back out to film. Oh, whoa, okay. And I was fortunate to live right in the intersection of those two circles where, hey man, I was an engineer, so I could speak engineering, right? But I also could speak creative because I had a lot of friends that were in the film community, right? My career took off. Ended up producing computer-generated effects for movies. We won the Academy Award for Independence Day. I produced the digital effects for Independence Day. That's, rising tide lifts all boats. Super cool. Did like 14 movies. So it's how I got to know, working for, not being like the grand poobah, but being the effects guy for Cameron, for Fincher, for Woody Allen, for Spielberg, for, Jim Jarmusch even had some visual effects. I met him. You don't think of his movies as being like visual effects movies. Like there's some amazing stuff I did in about 4 or 5 years. After Independence Day, Roland and Dean, the director and producer, approached me and said, why don't we start a company together? This was super fun. All our movies are like big $15, $20 million of effects movies. Well, let's start a company to do that. And we went off, raised a bunch of money, did that, sold that company like in my late 20s. And it was a 6X multiple. Everyone was just like, oh my God, this is so great. And I had money and I took a year or two off, just traveled the world. I was like, oh my God, this is so easy. Later did I learn, not easy, right? That was just luck. But did that and then had a moment after taking, because visual effects is grueling. I mean, it is often during post-production, 120 hours a week, you're sleeping in your desk or sleeping in your car because you just don't have the energy to go home. Like I drove home one night when we're working on Godzilla or something, and I accidentally drove my car into the wall of my garage just because I was tired. Like there was no other reason. It was just, I was tired. I think I might've fallen asleep while I was turning into my garage. Just hit it.
Oh my God.
So some of those days you just slept at work. So you're like, safer for me just to stay here.
Yeah.
So did that. And then I had a moment, after taking, pause to kind of recharge my batteries. So I was like, I think what I'd like to do next is maybe not wake up and be 30, 40, 50 years old making effects for someone else's movie. Let me see, because I made a lot of contact. Could I make a movie? Could I become like a producer or a studio executive sort of thing? And spent like 10 plus years doing that, eventually I was an executive vice president over on the DreamWorks lot, producing for Kurtzman Orsi. I was a vice president at 20th Century Fox, running the Die Hard franchise, the Wolverine franchise, like a bunch of franchises, right? And super cool. Definitely hit a point where I was like, we were on Die Hard 5 and I had a draft in. It was mediocre, to be polite, but it was going to get made. Of like the movies on my slate at the studios. The way the studio is set up is you have like a chairman, president sort of thing. And then you have the entire studio slate is split up among usually 6 to 8 vice presidents of different flavors, EVP, SVP, EVP, right? So if you have like 300 movies, let's say, that are in some form of development, it's a book the studio optioned, it's a video game they want to make a movie of, it's a script you bought, it's Brad Pitt's passion project, whatever it is, right? So let's say there are 300 of those. You split them across those 6 guys or girls. Each person has like 50 movies you're kind of responsible for. Some are studio franchises where it's like, yes, we have 9 more Ant-Man movies to make. You're the guy making Ant-Man, right? And some are like your passion projects were like, this is an amazing story. I know the writers, we developed this thing, right? So the interesting turn here is the next turn is, so we're in Die Hard 5. Of all the movies on my slate, my boss, who was the chairman of Fox Film and Entertainment, it was the only thing he was really passionate in that moment moving forward. I was like, this is actually the worst script that I have. Like, it's embarrassing. Like when I was at DreamWorks, we would never make this movie. And he was very honest with me. He's like, here's the deal, dude. Like, I can tell you if we put out a poster, like a one sheet, the vertical poster that says Die Hard on it, it will make $70 million opening weekend. Doesn't matter if there's film in the can. Doesn't matter if it's in color. He's like, people will $70 million of tickets will be sold domestically, just hoping to hear John McClane go, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, right? So I was like, oh, this is going to be a weird, sort of relationship of having, this movie go, and I don't think it's any good, right?
Right.
And I had no control over that. And that is technically my job. My job is to keep my boss happy, right? It is not to make the best movies on earth. It is not called show friendship or show art. It's called show business. And my boss, who had had his job for 14 years, was very clinical about that. He's like, this is how I keep my job. Like, as long as you make it for less than 70, we're good. You make it $1 over. I don't want to hear about how you went $1 over to make it better, because then you put my job at risk. And I was like, this is not inspiring. I'm not going to wake up and tell, my future kids, daddy's going off to make Die Hard 9 to pay for your college. It's like Bruce in the retirement home jumping off, his rocker. And so I was like, I want to go back into tech, because there I had some agency. I had some ability to actually create something, succeed or fail, right? But at least the ability to do something, as opposed to like, I'm just the guy shepherding these properties through, right?
Right.
Even though from the outside, people are like, oh, this is an amazing job. In reality, in film, it's like you're making soap. You make entertaining soap, but it's soap, and it comes out this time of year. It gets marketed this way. It smells this thing, and you kind of know what your audience is for floral soap. It comes out in spring, that sort of thing, right? So I went and I was like, I've already raised $50 million in my last company, had a successful exit. Let's go raise some more money. Let's go find it. Some problem I want to solve. I had 2 companies in a row, both failed. And I was like, I think I was too arrogant going in, that I had a vision that no one else could see, didn't listen to people enough, and raised $3 million for each of them. Still friends with most of the investors, tried really hard. But I'll tell you this, probably the best thing I did when I got back into tech was at the moment when I declared to myself, okay, this is not going to work, right? Mm-hmm. And before I called the investors and had that conversation, like, listen, I think we've taken this as far as we can. I'm really sorry. Do you have a different thought, right? What I did both times, I sat in this one chair that I have. I took a pad of paper and a pencil, like old school, like not a laptop, not like a digital thing, but me sitting there looking out the window. And I wrote to myself, what did I do wrong? What did I learn? And I was like, I know in a month, this will become hard to remember. In a year, I'll have this glorified memory of how hard I tried. But right now, in this moment of just like shame and embarrassment and pain, like, why is it painful? What did I do wrong? And I keep those 2 pieces of paper around, because I do believe we make the same mistakes unless we really take an effort not to remake them. There are reasons why we are not predestined, but predisposed, let's say, to make a certain kind of mistake. And one of my biggest mistakes was that thing. I was saying, I should have listened to more of my users. I should have gone deeper and kept asking why. Well, why do you want to do that way? Okay, well, why do you care about that? Oh, well, why is that important? Has that happened to you in the past? Like that sort of thing where you go, oh, I get there's a deeper thing happening than just I had a superficial conversation like, oh, you want to be taller. Okay, cool. Why do you want to be taller? Oh, right. So that was my turn back into tech. And it was interesting, and how I got here, how I created, the Sukha was, as we went into the pandemic and I had this small company. I had run 2 tech companies now. They're entirely remote. Mm-hmm. All my devs, all my designers, blah, blah, blah. And it's true, the advantages. global talent. Hey man, there's an amazing designer in Montreal. I can hire her. She doesn't have to live driving distance to my office, right? Oh, there's that amazing, engineer in Madrid. Hire him, right? No commute time wasted, flexibility, work life, all those things are true. But there were absolutely some challenges that I experienced. And I know because we had tight teams, like they experienced. And I thought to myself, some of these things actually, Stephen, you saw solved in film, which is going to sound kind of kooky to maybe an engineering crowd. But this is the end of the story, which is once you've worked in film, you realize that even though it hasn't been called this for decades, they've been doing it, which is a film goes through the entire spectrum of remote, hybrid, in-person, hybrid, remote. It begins with writers at home or in coffee shops, dreaming up ideas, working with their writing partner in coffee shops sort of thing. At a certain point, you're probably having some lunches or dinners with producers trying to pitch them your ideas. And then one of your ideas gets traction. And the producer gets a little money invested. And then you have a production office. And like 1 or 2 days a week, you come in to meet with the line producer and the location scout and the production designer. What does this look like? Where can we shoot it? Where are the tax incentives? And then the other 3 days you go back off and you're doing script revisions for the director and, so-and-so star wants to be in it, but they want the dialogue to be more Southern. So you're doing this hybrid thing. And then you are on set at a certain point, $125,000 a day, all night. Like I was joking about with, some of these movies where you're like, this is intense. You do that principle for a couple months. And then you go back to hybrid where it's like sound editors, picture editors, like Foley artists working it. And you're coming in and out and recording. And in the end, you're remote again. You're just doing marketing and you're getting ready for release and things like that. And through every stage of that, leaders in film, like team leaders, have established ways of managing that. And it hasn't been like called, oh, we're in the remote period, we're in the hybrid, we're in the RTO period, but it's like 150, 80, 100 years, it's the natural evolution of that. And I thought there were some great things that I experienced and things that I learned to do that were super applicable to the engineering teams that I run now. How can I sort of codify that? How can I take those things and package them together in the most beautiful way? And like, I know where the friction points are. How could I create a maybe if not frictionless, a lower friction way of getting over some of the traditional humps? And that is how we ended up here today, because I've been super passionate about sharing the things that I have learned that I've seen work, including the things I'm still working to solve.
That is an awesome origin story.
You asked the question, press the button, you get a Coke.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's awesome. Okay. So now I'm really curious because you kind of glossed over this whole thing about managing 50 movies. Like, and I'm thinking in my head, like, there has got to be, number one, that's a non-trivial amount of stuff to be managing.
It is.
Right? Like, 50 software projects. If I was trying to run 50 software projects at once, I would need a couple of layers of people to divvy up the labor on that, because I can't manage 50 teams at one time. Like,
that's not the hard part.
Okay, what's
the hard part? Is at the exact time that you are a senior executive at studio, like I was, you are trying to advance the projects you have, but you have a continuous stream of agents and writers and producers and directors and stars that want you to buy whatever they're selling that week. So you sometimes have like 15, 20 projects that are coming in, some of whom are from relationships you have. Oh my God, Bill's got a new script. He's giving it to me Thursday night before it goes out to all the studios on Friday because we did a movie before. Thursday night, I'm going to read that out of respect to Bill. You know what I mean? Like, so you're managing your established projects. At the same time, you're trying to compete with every major financier around town.
Right.
For all that incoming material. And that is really hard.
That's okay. So that is a fascinating and very different kind of a business struggle than any tech company I've ever heard of.
Yes.
Like,
correct.
That is completely. And so, I'm like, wow, how do you systematize that to have any kind of organization and not lose your mind? And like,
okay, you want to laugh?
Sure.
So when I was at DreamWorks and I was a junior executive, and in 4 years, I went from like a junior executive to an executive vice president, right? Because I worked really hard, and I found a great assistant who is right now vice president at AMC. He became my second brain. Like, we would be on calls together. He would help me with my task list. He would organize meetings for me. He would remind me when I had meetings coming up. He would prep stuff like, oh, by the way, remember you're going to go meet Director Bill in an hour. Just, you hear the 3 movies you just watched of his, and here's what his agent wants to sell you. It was amazing. And when he was ready to graduate, he's like, hey man, I want to go to it. I was like, I will help you. But here's the one thing I ask. Don't leave until you've hired yourself. And he went and
Mm.
found in the entire pool of Hollywood assistants someone who was as capable, as good natured, as fun to work with as he was. Ryan came, exact same thing. Did a year and a half with Ryan. Ryan left. I was like, Ryan, I'm going to help you. He went to become an attorney. I'm going to help you, but you have to hire yourself. He hired John. I had 3 assistants in a row where I had the most efficient workplace. And that experience of having an assistant that knew what was going on, they're just continually helping me, helped me design the smart assistant in Sukha. That's the inspiration for this, was just being there, being like, hey, here are your 3 tasks for the day. By the way, it feels like this one is maybe a little ambitious. I don't think you're going to get it done right now. How about we shift these around? Like that sort of thing where you're going, this is suddenly possible because of this. Again, reducing friction.
Right, right. Yeah, that's really interesting because I don't know that I've ever, I guess in my world, the way that I've had that is there's always been somebody on my team
Yep.
who I knew I could give the thorny problems. Like, and that's what they lived for, was they were like, what's the crux of this thing, that we're doing?
That's awesome. Yeah.
And that was the, and they were, we didn't always go to meetings together, definitely, but that was always my, okay, I have no clue how we're going to solve this problem, but I know if I talk to Nick, he'll know how to do it.
Yep.
Right. Or if I talk to Sonia, this is the kind of thing she's going to want to figure out.
Yep.
Like,
totally with you.
That that totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I wanted to reach that level of comfort and support with our smart assistant. Like that was the design impetus, to say, within this productivity tool that gives you beautiful music and timers and all that, the core of it, the heart of it, is someone like Rafi, someone like Ryan or John for me, where I could say, oh, you know what? I need to figure this out. I need to do this. Or can you remind me about that sense of like, I can do more because I have this force multiplier.
Right.
And to make it super affordable, just be like, this costs you almost nothing. So
yeah. That's a really interesting. Okay, now I gotta go find an assistant, I guess. In a way, like I bounce stuff off my partner all the time.
Yep.
And she's really good for feedback.
Great.
But that's not her day job.
She's not on your payroll.
She's not on the payroll. So I've got to got to figure out how to time box that appropriately to have it work.
We do time boxing. When you try the new Sukha, if you love it, let me know. I'll give you a free membership.
Okay, cool. I love it. Thank you. So aside from having a genius assistant, what kind of systems did you have in place, the two of you, to manage time? Because it seems like that's the scarce thing. That's like the scarcity in your world. Money wasn't scarce. It doesn't sound like.
Correct.
Time would definitely be the, I've got to sleep sooner or later so I don't drive my car through the garage wall.
Yes.
So I can't work 24 hours a day. I've got to back off that. And that's my limited, like, how do you get everything to happen?
I coordinate everything through my calendar. And that was the mutual agenda with my assistants, was that we would have a calendar, all the meetings, and they were great about, hey man, it's 5 minutes before your call, your Zoom, your meeting with so-and-so, and they would alert me. One of the things I built in Sukha was like, you connect your Google Calendar, you can be working away in focus, and it'll give you a little hint. You can say how many minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes before I got to do that Zoom or my stand up or whatever, just remind me so I don't miss it, and it'll do it for you. So there was that. And then also the ability just to drag tasks right into your calendar and say, you know what, tomorrow morning, like I need 2 hours to think, I need to do notes on the script, or I need to like do, a UX review, whatever. And just have that as a task we could drag in your calendar and say, just block this time out. Don't book anything here. I need that time to think.
Yeah.
That time boxing. And again, let me be super honest here. I am building on the shoulders of giants. Like, these are not new ideas. These are not my ideas. This is simply the things that I've seen work. I wanted to make really inexpensive and beautifully packaged together. So if you have read Cal Newport and Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's book on flow, and you've read Clear, and you're like, these concepts are common concepts, but I was like, how do we engineer a product that just brings them all together in a beautiful, frictionless way. So the time boxing I live by that.
That is
As
awesome.
a matter of fact, I have to go now because our time is over. I'm kidding. That was a joke. Bill, that was a total joke. That was a time boxing joke. Sorry.
That was so smooth. That was awesome. You pulled that out like out of left field.
I know. You went,
awesome.
I saw you look at your clock being like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Just
oh my
keep
God.
me on your toes.
He's
keep
got a meeting in another 5 minutes. I got to like, okay, well, thank you. And
right. My smart assistant comes in. I use sometimes there's a French girl who's one of the assistants you can choose. And she's a great way of just being like, your meeting is in 5 minutes. You should wrap up. I'm like, is that shit?
Exactly. That's funny. So the team you've got right now that's all remote.
Yeah.
What are what kind of things, how do you manage that? Are
you
agile or?
Well, yeah. And I'll tell you this, running some of my past companies before we could leverage, some of the modern tools, yes, they were more expansive. Like when we had, for example, we had developers between France, Spain, Montreal, head of design in Hawaii, junior designer in Dubai, but he was actually from not Myanmar, next door to Myanmar. I can't remember the name of it right now. He was from a small area in Mongolia. He was in Mongolia. So we had a very dispersed team, I just say this, right? And then we had, a couple like back-end contractors, not technically FTEs, but like, contractors work with us. They were in South America, helping building different, pieces of it. So that was definitely hey man, like we lived in linear, very helpful for us. And we built a linear integration, by the way, even when we were working on this in the early days, it was like, it'd be really nice to be able to just say connect, your linear and just pull a couple tasks in. Okay, this morning I'm going to do, this, and this, and it has it in your task list. So that was really helpful. The daily stand-up, which was hard sometimes to coordinate across time zones.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, let's see,
let's be honest, that's a challenge sometimes.
Right,
and there is that sense of like my wife, for example, is the head of digital for a large US bank. There are some contractors they work with that are overseas and all the security hassles of, authenticating, blah, 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 right? But they have to adjust their hours and it's a pain in the butt, but it's like, hey man, you decided you wanted to live in wherever you are. You want to do this job. Like we're going to need you at 9 a.m. Pacific or, 9 a.m., New York time,
right.
To be available just to sync up, because this is one of the things that people misunderstand about me is sometimes because I've spoken a lot about remote work, they think that I only believe in remote work, and I don't. Like I said, with film, I've seen the different techniques for like in person, in real life, RTO, hybrid. Oh, let's all get together 1 or 2 days a week, whatever, and completely remote. And I view them more like colors on your palette that you paint with. And I think before the pandemic in tech, there was a lot of like reds and yellows and stuff like that, but maybe there wasn't a lot of blue. And then the pandemic sort of forced everyone into like, oh shit, there's this other color. We can do lakes now. We can paint skies, like that sort of thing. And everything was blue for like a year or two. And now I think the balance is not like, okay, just scrape the blue off your palette. We're going back to all reds. But it's another thing of like, there are some times when blue's really great. There's some times when I need to do deep work. I love that I'm not in an office. I love that I can be at home, get up, do whatever for 2 hours, take a break, go downstairs, do laundry, clear my head, think about, what's the thing I need to do? And, oh, I had that idea. Okay, I'll go upstairs after I grab a bite to eat and like go, go back into deep work, focus, right? So that's the thing that I think I want to clarify is that I think of it as colors on your palette. And now we have a better understanding of like, there's some stuff where it's like, hey man, 1 or 2 days a week, you code better at home.
Right.
I want you to have that. And I'll tell you, can I tell you a sort of related story? It ends in a way that's related to this. Cool.
Go. Yeah.
So my company has a really weird name, the Sukha company. And I'll tell you where that came from. When we had an early version of this running, we had some members who were using it, blah, 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 right? And our churn was pretty high. It was like 50%. But the people who were paying us month over month in these early days, I was going off, Laura and I got married, and very fortunate, went to Bali for 10 days, right? Which, when you have a small business, you're used to every day people asking you every question. Hey man, should we order some red staplers? What about this client? Are we going to do this feature? What is the roadmap changed? Oh, there's an update to Node. So for those 10 days, everyone was just like, leave him alone. Like he's on his honeymoon. Don't bug him. Do not email Puri. Like let him have his honeymoon, right? So it was this crazy moment of like getting there and being like, it's quiet. Like I checked my email and it's like just some email newsletters. There's no one bugging me, right? So I talked to Laura, who's been incredible support through all this. Like you were talking about your partner. Like Laura's amazing for me. And I said to her this, I said, I know this may sound weird. I know it's our honeymoon, but I think this might be the only opportunity I have to really do something deep thinking on what should I call this thing? And I think the really interesting input is because I'm inside the bubble, I don't really see what I'm doing because I'm here every day. Like, I
Right.
talk. Can I like choose a couple of our power members in these early days and just do like a short, like 5-10 minute Zoom with them? Basically ask like, what's your favorite feature? Like, why do you use this? Right. And she's like, sure, go for it. I'll go to the pool. Yeah, done. So emailed a couple of them. Hey man, would you get on Zoom with me for like 10 minutes? Just real quick. So this conversation changed the entire trajectory of the company. A couple of conversations were very nice and fun and polite and maybe not that helpful. One user I spoke to, this guy who's still, he's actually in the coffee shop right now on the screen. And I talked to him probably 8 minutes of dumb questions like, hey, Bill, what feature do you like? Do you like, the music? We have like 1,000 hours of scientifically designed, 60 to 90 beats per minute. These key signatures are supposed to work better. Binaural beat. Like, do you love that? Do you love like the assistant? Do you love like the timers and the breaks and the stretching? And like, what do you? And at the end of 8 minutes, I was like, okay, I really appreciate your time. Thanks a lot. Just give me a lot to think about. And he's like, Steven, stop. You didn't ask me the right question. Okay. What's the right question? He's like, the question you should have asked me is this: why do I pay you? And I was like, it's a little more bold than I was going to be, but okay, Bill, why do you pay me? And he said this, and I have never thought of this or phrased this as clearly as he did, is he said, at 3:00, I can be playing with my kids, or at 6:00, I can be where the fuck did the day go? And the difference is, did I open Sukha in the morning when I started work? That's why I pay you. And I was like, thank you. Hung up with him, had dinner with Laura. I was like, okay, I did my little Zooms. This one Zoom, this guy said this thing. And I told her this. And she was like, wow. So we're brushing our teeth, going to go to bed that night. As we're getting bed, Laura said to me, you know what it is? I think why you're stuck is this. You've been thinking about describing your features in your name, like Focus App 14, productivity focus mate app thing, She's like, I actually don't think that's what you do. What this guy was trying to tell you is what you do is you help him to be happy. His happiness is, I did a great job at my work and I can play with my kids.
Right.
She said, I think the productivity tools are just a path and you're trying to name the path. The goal is actually self-fulfillment. And she and I met in yoga. Laura and I have a daily yoga practice for over 10 years. She's like, in yoga, there are a lot of Sanskrit words we listen to, prana. And she's like, that's actually Sukha. That is the Sanskrit concept of self-fulfilled happiness. When you're in your lane, doing what you're meant to do, and it feels good, you know?
Right.
She's like, that's what you're talking about. And in that moment, I was like, okay, we're going to call it the happiness company. We're going to call it the Sukha company. And I've been very focused on how is it we help you to get to that place of like, man, this feels good, And you can say it's a flow state, there's that great quote, Michael Jordan talking about like, in those moments, it's just me and the ball. He's like, I don't even see the defenders. I don't see the scoreboard. There's no one screaming in the stands. It's just me and the ball. I'm just in a state of flow. And that's where I am. Right. How do we achieve that? Like the Picasso thing about like, I was up all night. I forgot to pee. I'm misquoting him exactly. I'm paraphrasing. He's like, I forgot to pee. I didn't eat. But by the way, here's Guernica. Do you like it? I haven't slept. And that sense of like getting in your lane where you're like, this is something I have skills like, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talks about in his book. It's like to get into flow, you have to be doing something where you have a skill set that applies, right? It's not Michael Jordan painting. It's not Picasso throwing a basketball, right? You have skills that apply. It's something that is challenging. Like it's within your grasp, but it pushes you to actually engage and you believe in the value of it, And I'll tell you, there's some organizations I've worked with because engineering managers have approached us and said like, hey, we set up a private group with all my devs around the world and I did the thing. And I'll tell you what's interesting is in talking, because I've spoken to these EMs a bunch, is that the teams that work, they're teams where the hiring has done a good job of finding people value aligned. Like the people who are developing this, they actually believe that at the end of the day, the thing they did made the world a bit better, as opposed to like, well, I got one more second of time on site. So I guess my boss's boss will sell a little more ad time and, my stock options will go up. You know what I mean? There's no intrinsic motivation there. I think you talk about with Dr. Joey on one of your episodes, you talk about like that sense of like
intrinsic motivation,
the intrinsic motivation, right? Yeah, so if you have people where they have a a song to sing if they believe that what they want to do is aligned with what you're doing. Man, just reduce the friction in front of them. Let them get to happiness because it benefits everyone. And if
Right.
they're not the right person, fire them. Like literally, you need to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Go like, Bill, this does not seem the right fit. You're a good guy. Let me help you find the right thing for you because it's not this team and it's not you. It's not us. It's not
Right.
it's
Right.
just it's not the fit. Where
Right.
do you want to go? Maybe I know someone at that company and I will give you a great recommendation. Let's get
Yep.
you somewhere where maybe you are excited about selling more ad time because we're not that company. So,
Yeah. And it's really insightful that you can see that.
by the way, not beer,
Not
sparkling
beer.
water.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Not
a little
beer.
too early.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's multiple things in that story. Number one, the thing that's interesting is that getting done at 3:00 and playing with your kid means you were really focused and high productive from whatever you started until 3 hit.
Yes.
Which is awesome because getting people into, I'm a huge fan of get your work done, then get out of the office, office, right? Like if you can get, out and go play at 3:00, go.
Work is what you got done, not how long it took you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally agreed.
And
as a leader, you need to create that culture.
Right.
You need to stick a spear in the side of, oh, I worked all night last night. No, there's no nobility in that.
Right.
There is that feature is driving adoption. People love it. That's the win. Not, man, Bill worked until 2 a.m. What a great worker. No.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that because that's not the standard narrative at most companies.
I know.
And it's sad because I think it ruins productivity.
Yep.
I think it ultimately it kills productivity because sooner or later people are super frustrated, annoyed, and upset, and they're resentful.
Because you get confused about what's the goal.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into stand up be like hearing from people or telling people how hard I worked or how they did. No.
Yeah.
What I want to hear is like, you know what? I feel so good about what I built. I would love some feedback. Can you guys, kick the tires on this before we send it over to QA or whatever, whatever it is. Like that sense of like, this is really cool. And by the way, I looked at the designs as well as building it. I was thinking, maybe we really need to have this. So I have an alternate version. Like it's not spec'd this way and we don't have to use it. But could you try it and tell me? Because maybe we should. That's the sort of thing you want to have in a stand-up where you're like, dude, Bill, yeah, absolutely. This is better. Let's go that way, And you're not a designer. You're just someone who cares.
Right. And but being the caring person gives you different insights and perspectives.
Yeah.
That sometimes the designers don't have the right skin in the game.
Right.
And they don't see it that way. And so
they're talking in the abstract and you are actually making the thing. Let me ask you this. Have you ever used a product, and by the same mean an engineered product, and you could feel the caring of the people went into it? You could literally go, the person behind this, they wanted to delight me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you can tell when it's just like, hey, man, I phoned it in. I did my work. The ticket's closed. Technically, the button is clickable.
Right.
You can feel that. You're just like, okay, this is a product. But those ones that delight you, you go, there's someone on the other side of the screen that's going, wasn't that beautiful? Did you like that?
Yeah. And sadly, oh, this is horrible. God, how'd you now that you said that, I'm like, oh, damn. So there was a software programming language database package that I used years and years ago. Mm-hmm. It was freaking awesome. It was interpreted language. It worked so well. It was very it was a database. It was a database that was designed all around text. Mm-hmm. Like they wouldn't sell it to you if you needed to do math.
Got it.
Because they're like, that's Oracle's job. We don't do that. We're all about text, right?
Smart. Stay in your lane.
Yeah. And it had everything you could imagine that search has ever had was already in there. Like these guys were so far ahead of
when was this?
This was in the late 90s.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It started as a college research project in the Midwest to digitize, to scan OCR and make searchable all of the documents around. It was a huge court case. It was like one of the first tobacco court cases or something like that. Yeah. They were like hundreds of thousands of documents.
Yep.
And they were like, here, and so these guys came up with this whole thing, right? We were doing stuff in the 90s that like we were doing geographic radius search based on
Mhm.
zip code and town. Like nobody, literally zero other people had that.
Yep.
Like nobody had the infrastructure to make that work, right? These guys had it in there.
That's amazing.
We were doing keyword targeted ads, and we had fuzzy match. Like people would put in search terms, and we would do a fuzzy match against the text, right?
Yeah.
And you could say, what's the word proximity,
Yeah.
right?
That's awesome.
Like
Yeah.
all kinds of, and they had a
And now we take for
thesaurus.
granted, but it was like
Yeah,
25 years ago, not for granted.
right. And it was they had their own, and it was stupidly fast and very very low resource.
What happened to that? Where's this going? What happened to this?
So it's still privately held. They made a boatload of money.
Yeah.
Because there's this company you've probably heard of, license them for the search engine. It's called eBay.
eBay. It's from. I'll Google that later.
Yeah, Google it later. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So so they were the search engine for eBay for a long time.
Okay.
And they made a insane amount of money, and they're privately held. And it's like
good for them.
The founder who worked out of his basement.
Yep.
And everybody else worked remote, like your model, right?
Yeah.
And they just, I think they all are like, well, we have so much money in the bank now, we just don't care. Nobody's a billionaire, but they don't need to be, you know?
At a certain point, the marginal value of the next dollar is really low. It's like,
right.
What's the difference between 300 million and 301 million? I don't know. I mean, I'd like to know. I'd like to know, but I don't know.
You'd like to know, but yeah, but it might be disappointing a little bit. You might get there and be like, oh,
right.
Oops.
Yeah. Could you gold plate this gold? Okay.
Right. Yeah. But that was such a, like, it kind of ruined me for every software product after that.
I can imagine.
It was amazing. So good to use. And the programming language that they had, it was an interpreted language, kind of like PHP or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was super easy to use, had really simple syntax. Yeah, it just was super elegant. And everything I touched after that, I'm like, God, okay, this is just not my day of a good time.
Right. Got it.
Yeah, it's just it's kind of like when you get into a car and like all the controls, and it's like it's beautifully organized, and you're like, it, you know, you turn the wheel just a hair and the car goes exactly the way you want it to, and
yeah,
it you know, it was just amazing, you know, and sadly, I compare everything to them, and I'm
often disappointed.
I'm almost always, it's like I'm so ruined from that, you know. I'm like, it's, yeah.
I totally get that. And it is incredibly complex to make something simple.
Yeah. And I love that they did that, you know.
Yeah. But it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of work to make something easy. I think it was Blaise Pascal, I think, that wrote that long letter, and at the end he said, I apologize for the length of this letter, but I didn't have the time to write a shorter one.
Yes.
And you're like, actually, that's super true.
Yeah. So I've had you for an hour, and I know that your
calendar
is probably dinging you right now, going, you got another meeting. This has been awesome. I could talk to you for hours about this stuff, because you have
absolutely. And if you ever want to chat more, hit me up.
I'll be happy to. The Sukha company, what's your URL?
It's actually the Sukha company. So it's TheSukha, which is that word for happiness in Sanskrit, .co, not .com, but thesukha.co, the Sukha company. Yep.
I'll put that in the show notes, and anybody that's
that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Not looking, of course. No, I think it's super cool.
And if anyone even wants to just talk about productivity, or they have, you know, issues, like I've heard most of them, and I'm happy if you can put my email there. It's very public.
Mm-hmm.
If I can help, I will. Like, it doesn't have to be about my company, but if someone's like, hey man, I'm wrestling with this, there's a book that I've read or a blog post or something I can refer them to. So please, you know, awesome. You can put that in there.
Beautiful.
Spam. Thank you. A lot of spam just happened, probably. Just got scraped off your site. Damn it.
Sooner or later, you're going to need to have that assistant that actually
sources it all. Exactly.
Goes through all of it and goes, yeah, Steven needs to read these 5 emails. Yeah.
Let me put that on the roadmap real quick. Hold on. Bill, thank you so much for having me. Thank whoever is still listening at this point. Thank you guys for listening. I hope there was something fun and engaging about what we talked about.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Have a great, you too. Bye.
We'll see you later.
Okay.
That was awesome.